Good morning from Simply Media. Today, we're talking about Amtrak and its new CEO, Richard Anderson, formerly the CEO of Delta and Northwest Airlines. The Wall Street Journal ran a fabulous article about him on July 6th and Amtrak. It led off with a teaser about how some people were critical of him and thought he ought to be fired. And what it was all about was he was making some hard choices on soft financial issues for Amtrak where they were losing money. What's interesting about the article, and is well worth reading, is Anderson was a pro at following the directions of boards of directors. Wherever he was respected and admired for his following the plan. So what did Anderson do when appointed in 2017? He laminated his mission that was set by Congress. He laminated it, and when congressmen asked him questions about one boondoggle or another, he would give them a copy of it, which stated that his mission was to make Amtrak more efficient and more profitable if possible, but certainly cut the losses, and this was enacted by Congress in 2008. What's wonderful about this is here was a CEO following the dictates of what Congress had approved and found objections here, there, and the other place. In the article, it made the point that he liked combat. What seemed to me from reading it, and you can look it up too, because you can Google it, is very simple. He was following the orders from the board, and that's what he's supposed to do. What's wonderful about this, and not talked about much these days, is how the Federal Civil Service, in so many ways, has made things better. The IRS has made it much simpler to file taxes, get your returns, answer your questions without physical audits by pinging you with letters. I've gotten a few, and they ask questions. They're not abusive, they're not difficult, and they're correct. What about this? If you provide them the evidence and you're right, that's the end of it. If you provide them the evidence and you're partially right, they adjust the bill. If you present it and you're entirely wrong, you have to pay up. The point is they don't take sides in any of this stuff, and I find Anderson the same way. I look at Anderson as an excellent CEO, somebody deserves our praise, and yet he's getting nibbled at. It's kind of incredible. But that's the way people often go. They basically take small things and criticize them. Well, what is he criticized for? He's been criticized for cutting back on certain long-distance trains, which lose a lot of money. In the Northeast Corridor, that's Washington to Boston, basically Amtrak makes over $500 million profit. That's awfully good. It's not a small accomplishment. And in many places where rail lines are known to be best at 400 miles or less, in the Midwest, out of Chicago, for example, or in Texas between Houston and Dallas and places like that, and Southern California, Amtrak does just fine. It doesn't necessarily make much money, but it doesn't lose much money either. The problem is on certain long-distance trains that come from another era and are nostalgic, although that nostalgia doesn't get many people to ride them, they lose a lot of money. Now, on my route that I take occasionally, from Boston down to Miami, they don't lose money on that route because enough people take that, particularly through Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and part of Florida. When people take it between one town and another town, they may go 200 miles or 400, and I've seen it. Not that many people do what I do and ride all the way down, but I love the trip. It's a wonderful time and it's just lovely. But the point is, he's doing his job, and I think it's important to recognize that and recognize civil servants who are doing it. And what he's doing reminds me a lot of the Supreme Court when Sandra Day O'Connor, the justice from Colorado, who famously was called upon to write the opinions when the court was presented with bad ideas that were implemented, or many people thought they were bad, but they were what Congress had agreed to and the president had agreed to. And one of her famous comments about the public domain law that was extended from 1998 to 2018 and just allowed it to go forward again in 2019. And this was important because this extended Mickey Mouse, which is the reason it was done, and it was extended the Great Americana, like the Great Gatsby and items like that cost the school a lot more, and we participated in making audiobooks of these various public domain things starting January 1st this year. And she had a wonderful statement, and I just think this is wonderful. She said, we're the court, we're not supposed to make law, and it's a bad law, it's not good, but Congress approved it, the president signed it, so it's the law. Until Congress and the president choose to change it. Well, it wasn't changed in the latter part of Clinton's administration, it wasn't changed in Bush's administration, it wasn't changed in Obama's administration, but it was let expire under Trump. The point she had was she was following the mission, and the court had a habit of giving her those things to write. She famously wrote, when people were complaining about Roe versus Wade, that it was a Band-Aid in 1973, and that Congress, if they're going to complain about it, ought to do something. They'd had majorities of Democrats in Congress and the presidency who could have done something and didn't. Now, that doesn't mean they should, but the point was it's up to Congress to do it. And I think what's wonderful about Anderson is he follows what Congress said to the T. If Congress wants Amtrak to do something different, they should say it. The wonderful thing I would like to say about him is he is planning to make Amtrak break even in 1 year. That's 2020. That's just marvelous. And that follows on the back of much good work by Amtrak. What happened? What did he do? Well, the first thing he did is he got better software, and I know that as a consumer. In the last year, it has taken me half the time to get a ticket that it used to get online. In other words, talking to somebody. And they're very helpful and very knowledgeable, and they get it done in 1 minute, maybe 90 seconds. I can't even remember it so fast. And then they get on to somebody else, which is very cost effective. So the point is, it's good for me as the customer, it's good for Amtrak, and it gives us confidence. These people know what they're doing. The other thing is, when there's a refund, they don't overpromise. They say you'll get it in 3 to 5 days. I've always gotten it in 24 hours. But it's a sign of modesty. The other kinds of changes that he's made, and Amtrak's system has made, is that when you get a ticket now, it's all on one sheet of paper. Not two, one. Think about that overall. So the service is good. The trains have been on time. They're clean. They're nice. I've taken them. People are happy. They treat you really well on Amtrak. Everybody seems to be joyful to be working there and not totally unlike the airlines. So I think it's well to remember that it's kind of a win-win, and a lot of these civil service people are doing a good job. So think about that. Think about how good that is and how nice it is federal agencies are working so well, which is agnostic. They don't take sides. These aren't Republicans or Democrats or this or that. They're working for the American people and doing a darn nice job. Thank you from Simply.